This week in Louisiana agriculture.
I'm AJ Sabine at the Port of Greater Baton Rouge. I'll tell you what grain farmers think about the 2 lease proposals for the grain elevator there.
And whether you know it or not, you've already paid for all the groceries you'll need for the rest of the year. We'll tell you how farmers made that possible.
One little girl has a very bright future in the livestock industry. I'm Kristen Oakes, and I'll have her story coming up.
Hello, I'm Michael Dana. Thanks so much for joining us. Louisiana grain farmers who do business with the Port of Greater Baton Rouge are now one step closer to a final decision on who will hold the next lease to operate the grain elevator in Port Allen. At last week's meeting of the Greater Baton Rouge Port Commission, farmers heard firsthand exactly what they can expect from the current tenant, Cargill, Inc., and a competitor, Dreyfus Global. This week in Louisiana Agriculture's AJ Sabine was at last week's meeting, and AJ, a long meeting of the Port Commissioners last week.
Yes, sir. A very long meeting, but this has been a long time coming for a lot of Louisiana grain farmers. In fact, for the past 14 months, grain farmers have waited to hear about what changes the 2 potential leaseholders would make to the grain elevator at the port, including how that tenant will create demand for Louisiana grain. In fact, more than 50 Louisiana farmers showed up to hear presentations from both companies and took the opportunity to tell Cargill and Dreyfus what they wanted out of the next elevator operator.
At a packed Port Commission meeting room, it's a tale of 2 leases. Cargill's Todd Thull has the first chance to convince Port Commissioners and farmers why its lease with the port should be renewed. For these farmers, that's a tough sell. Over the past decade, Cargill's relationship with farmers has been strained over several issues, including the price Cargill sets for grain sold to the elevator. Thull acknowledged the mistakes of the past, but promised a better relationship with a renewed lease.
We're asking you guys to trust us. I mean, and it's a pretty hard thing. I think the fact that we've been here for 55 years is being worked against us. We view that as we've invested in this relationship that we want to continue to grow, and we have not been perfect, and we've made some mistakes, and it's a difficult thing. I think coming here and telling you all that, though, might be a pretty good step to say that we know that we've had some problems, and we're gonna change our approach to this business.
Changing Cargill's approach gnawed at the minds of many of these farmers. Louisiana Farm Bureau marketing specialist David Bollick asked Cargill about a 10-year shift in basis levels at the elevator.
So my question to you, how do you explain a 25-cent average drop? That's not worst case, but average drop in corn and soybean basis over that period that was studied relative to barge values?
It's market driven on what we're going to do, and so we saw the study. We were disappointed that nobody asked us any questions about it. Nobody
contacted us to refute it either. We would have been glad to discuss any weaknesses.
I guess I'm saying that before it was presented, we were disappointed that nobody asked for any participation, because we didn't think it was really an apples to apples comparison on what values were.
Next, Dreyfus pitched its proposal to the commission. Grain farmers at the meeting listened closely as Mike Mandel explained Dreyfus's plan to make the Port Allen elevator its premier export facility.
We're not interested in running the facility as it's currently being run. We're interested in making this our flagship facility, the only one that we've got on the Mississippi River, and one where we would put every pound of grain that we can sell and we can originate through this specific facility, and at the same time not being in a position where we compete with others up the river.
After both presentations, grain farmers we spoke with had a clear favorite on who they'd like to see get the lease.
I think Dreyfus is. I think they have a farmer-oriented contract that's going to benefit us. It will add a competitor on the Mississippi River, and that can only mean better bases and better prices for the farmers.
Louisiana Soybean Association, as president, we look for companies that are going to increase our bottom line. And competition does that. And we know that having a new company coming in, well, either company that stays is going to increase competition here. So it means a lot to the farmer. It means a lot to their bottom line. It means a lot to the elevator hours, dumping opportunities and getting the crop out of the field.
Port commissioners will decide who gets the lease after the state and the LSU Ag Center complete an economic impact analysis of the proposed leases.
The economic impact study being conducted by the LSU Ag Center should be complete before the next meeting of the Port Commission, where the final vote on the lease is expected to be taken.
And AJ, I know you were at that meeting. That meeting went nearly 6 hours, and I'm certain probably a lot of the Port Commission members were kind of surprised to see a room full of farmers. What was the mood like at that meeting?
Well, obviously, Mike, there's a lot of history between Louisiana grain farmers and Cargill when they spoke, and so when Louis Dreyfus took over, a lot of that animosity kind of left the room.
Very good. AJ, Sabine, thanks. And of course, this week in Louisiana Agriculture will be at the next meeting of the Greater Baton Rouge Port Commission, where we will bring you all the details after the commissioners cast their vote.